9 years ago, I quit my badly paid English teaching job to dedicate myself 100% to my online business. On that bright summer morning in 2015, I gave my last classes down at Banco de España in Madrid. It was June 30th. Walking out of the language school near Torre Picasso a few hours later, final paycheck in hand, I didn't have much of a life plan. My only real goal at the time was to never go back to teaching English classes. That grind just wasn't for me anymore. 8 a.m. in the bank building, lunchtime in some poligono outside of town, afternoons in the language school, all for a bit more than 1,100 euros a month. It was fun sometimes, but it also got old the more I did it, and I'd been doing it for more than 10 years. But this was it, my big day. Victory in Europe Day, I was calling it, because despite all the obstacles, I'd moved to Europe, and this was my personal victory over the tyranny of badly paid jobs. I was 32, single, had all my teeth, and was living 6,000 miles from home. I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted my life to look like at age 40, for example. I figured I'd just spend the next few years doing the online thing, making videos, writing articles, selling books and courses. I might become a rich, famous YouTuber, and if not, it would probably be fine anyway. If things went downhill at some point, I'd just change course. No problem. I was feeling optimistic about the future. That evening, I went to a fancy hotel bar near my house. I ordered a beer and sat there, contemplating. I was alone. Due to the volatility of the online dating scene, I had just been through not one but 3 painful breakups. This is it, I thought, my new life. Freedom from wage slavery. Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to another episode of Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. This is episode 80. This is a bit more personal. I can go back to talking about Spanish politics or over-tourism or whatever in the next few episodes. Today, just a few thoughts that I've had about 9 years of gainful unemployment. So, like I said, it was 2015. I was 32 years old. I was feeling pretty good about the future. Looking back, it all seems pretty naive, though. I hadn't yet registered as self-employed. I hadn't even gotten my first real tax bill from the Spanish government. My big summer plan was to spend a couple of weeks in Eastern Europe, a bucket list thing I'd never had the time or money for while employed. Out in Budapest and Zagreb, I spent my time drinking palinka and chatting up waitresses. Ever the light-hearted adventurer, I also visited the Soviet Terror Museum in Budapest and the Museum of Broken Relationships in Zagreb. Then I came back to Madrid and got to work. I had some ups and downs. Self-employment wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Financially and emotionally, those first few months were a bit difficult. I would have a few good months, followed by a huge tax bill, followed by another breakup, followed by some bad months, followed by some okay months. You get the idea. Much later, I read an article by some business guru saying that the first couple of years after quitting your day job to be full-time self-employed are going to be the hardest of your life. Interesting. It would have been good to know that back in 2015, but I was blissfully aware of what was in store for me. Oh well, I got through it. A lot has happened in the 9 years since then. I moved from Madrid to Barcelona. I turned 40. I got married. I stopped drinking. I bought a house. Life continues to exceed my expectations. For a college dropout with no obvious talents and the charisma of a sack of potatoes, I think I'm doing pretty well. But sometimes I wonder if I'm just lucky. According to the law of truly large numbers, not to be confused with the law of large numbers, because of the vast number of things happening in the world every day, highly implausible events actually take place all the time. So, for example, meeting my now wife Morena due to a series of improbable coincidences is a bit random, but in a city with millions of people, random happens every minute. And I'll be the first to admit that I've had some luck in my life, but my escape from the teaching industry seems to be more than luck. I've written 17 books, 2,000 articles, made 700 videos. More recently, I started not one but 2 podcasts and have made a total of 400 episodes between them. This is one of those podcasts, episode 80. If you're learning English, my other podcast, Aprende Más Inglés, is more regular than this one and has 322 episodes at this point, I think. Anyway, I've done all that and more. I never became a rich, famous YouTuber, but I did discover that if you put enough stuff out there and listen to feedback when you get it, something is bound to happen eventually. Anyway, what would luck look like in the case of a writer? Writing a book sucks. Try it someday. I've done it a total of 17 times now, and it's sucked every single time. And in no case did luck step in to write the next chapter for me. It was all just work I did, alone, with very little encouragement or support, and often, at the beginning, during the breaks between my several day jobs. I guess there might be someone out there who wrote 6 articles, one of them went viral, and the next thing they know they've got a massive book deal. Lucky. But even then, they've still got to write the book, and probably more books after that. And they've got to do all the self-promotion involved in a successful book launch. So, I don't know. Luck. I will say I was lucky to be born in the US, which has its problems, but which all told is a pretty great country. And I was lucky to have a marketable skill that was, at least for several years, in high demand. Speaking English meant I could live abroad and make enough money to get by. The Great Recession in my late 20s and early 30s didn't affect my life much. I spent it giving English classes for $11 an hour, eating cheap protein, and living in shared flats, basically the same I was doing when times were good. I was never unemployed, just badly and sometimes illegally employed, with months of unpaid holidays in the summers. Not everybody in Spain did so well. A lot of Spaniards my age had to emigrate during those years, which, depending on how you look at it, could be bad luck or very good luck. Being an immigrant creates some grit in your personality that I'd imagine most people wouldn't get if they just stayed home. I doubt that I would have. So for me, it's a positive. Your mileage may vary. The harder I work, the luckier I get. That's one of those trite expressions you see from time to time, but I think it might be mostly true. Maybe hard work creates good luck, and maybe a sense of optimism that things might go better than you hoped helps a person to take chances that someone more pessimistic wouldn't. I was lucky that a friend gave me the idea to start a blog about English. But once again, luck didn't learn tech skills for me or write all those hundreds of articles. Ideas are all around us, in other words, and basically worthless unless you execute on them. I was also lucky to get my Spanish work visa approved eventually, but I was illegal for 7 years before it happened. Luckier people were just born in Europe and didn't have these problems. My struggle with bureaucracy was not easy, and it took quite a while. The reasonable thing to do would have been to go back home and get a job as a barista. I'd done it before, and I was good at foaming the milk for cappuccinos. I could have made $6 or $7 an hour plus tips and never had to deal with foreign bureaucracy again. Luckily, I've never been reasonable. Here's another quote. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. I always thought that was a quote from Steve Jobs, but it turns out to be a paraphrase of something the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once wrote in his journal. That's Soren with a slash through the O, in case you're wondering. Steve Jobs did say something similar about connecting the dots in his famous commencement speech back in the day. You can Google Steve Jobs commencement speech if you're the only person on the planet who hasn't seen that one. It's very famous. I recommend it. But anyway, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. One interpretation of that is that we can't really know what the results of our actions will be. All we can do is try our best and keep an open mind and hope it'll all make sense someday. Moving to Madrid with a backpack full of clothes and then overstaying my tourist visa appeared, superficially, to be a very bad idea. In hindsight, it turned out better than I could have hoped. Quitting my day job to run an online business, in Spain of all places, not the most business-friendly of countries, could have gone either way, but in the end, that also appears to have been a good choice. Of course, I've had a lot of problems to work through since that fateful day back in 2015, not the least of which is the fact that I've eliminated most of my human interaction to spend my days working in front of a computer screen. But luckily I've come out okay, with my sense of optimism mostly intact. Who knows where we'll all be in another few years? In the meantime, here's my advice. Do your push-ups, eat your protein, and try to get good at something people are likely to pay you for. If you obsess over abstract problems, life can seem complicated. But if you stay within your circle of competence, doing the right thing in the next few minutes is simpler. And in the end, the next few minutes in your circle of competence is the only place where you can reliably have an impact. That's about all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. A few final thoughts before we finish today. I assume that luck has a greater impact in some people's careers than others. The genetic lottery is real. For example, if you happen to be 7 feet tall, your chances of scoring $1 million contract in the NBA are pretty high. But you still have to do a lot of cardio to get there. If you're wildly attractive and discovered by a talent agent when you're a teenager, you may get started in acting. Then again, I've known some wildly attractive people who worked very hard trying to become actors and were not immediately catapulted to fame and fortune because of their good looks. Some people are born into important families, some are born in the slums of Mumbai. Luck definitely matters. But so does what you choose to do with that luck or lack of it. Peter, in the comments over on my blog, expatmadrid.com, mentioned that I left something out, that hard work might create good luck, but you also have the option to make terrible choices. That's true, I agree. I have made some terrible choices in my day, thankfully nothing that I couldn't recover from. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner who recently died, has a quote that is along the lines of, "You can create a bigger long-term advantage for yourself by avoiding stupidity rather than trying to chase brilliance." He doesn't say it exactly like that. Let me see if I can see the exact quote. Here. "It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid, instead of trying to be very intelligent." That's fine too. Basically, being not stupid is something you can get a lot of mileage out of, even if you're not a once-in-a-generation genius. I fully agree. Don't start doing drugs or something. Don't marry a total psycho. I don't know. On the other hand, my whole story of illegally emigrating to Spain sounds like one of those things that if you were a smart person, you would just avoid doing it. And it worked out well, so I don't know what to say. Hindsight, I guess, is always more accurate. And in many cases, it's not easy at the time to tell what is a good decision and what is a bad one. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little contemplation here. You can go by expatmadrid.com for a lot more about Madrid, Barcelona, life in Spain, etc. You could also check out my YouTube channel, Learn Spanish with Daniel. All episodes of the podcast are up there. There are also a bunch of videos where I'm teaching a bit of Spanish to English speakers. If you're interested in learning Spanish and seeing more of me, that's a good place to go. I enjoy the Spanish language and I enjoy teaching, and actually I would rather do that for free than give English classes for small amounts of money at this point in my life. So that's positive. If you would like to donate to the cause here, I will definitely spend it on coffee or sparkling water or moderately priced protein sources. I'm training a lot these days, so I go through a lot of eggs and meat. I'm not yet one of those gym bros who just buys chicken breasts in a pack of 24 and cooks them all and just eats chicken all week. Not yet, maybe someday. The donation page is expatmadrid.com/donate. That'll take you to a page where you can make a donation however much you want. And you can also write me a message about what you would like to hear on future episodes of this podcast. Some of my episodes come from suggestions from listeners just like you. So thanks for donating. Any amount helps. If you're listening to this, you probably don't need my help learning English, but you could always go by Amazon and look for a couple of my books. Just look for my name, Daniel Welsh. Like I said, writing books sucks, but having written books is pretty great because, I do the work once and I get paid repeatedly afterwards. Small amounts of money for every copy. Just look for my name on Amazon and you'll do fine. Thank you once again for listening, and until next time, from beautiful Barcelona, hasta la próxima.